Welcome back. The prospect of a new government is further away than ever. This morning, as Fianna Fáil refused to discuss a coalition deal with Sinn Féin. So, could we be looking at a Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael coalition or heading back to the polls?
Joining us with that story and everything else making the news this morning is Director of Irish Academy of Public Relations, Ellen Gunning. Good morning to you, Ellen.
Morning, Ellen.
Good morning. Right, we don't have a decision yet. We don't have any decision or any government.
No.
Give us a roundup of where we're at now, Ellen, because a few changes took place yesterday, didn't they?
The latest, well, what happened yesterday really was that Fianna Fáil Parliamentary Party met. Now, if you read the signals from Micheál Martin a couple of days back, it seemed as if he might be saying that possibly the people have spoken and we may need to actually talk to Sinn Féin. His own party, as people were arriving yesterday, were saying absolutely not. We told the people we wouldn't go into government with Sinn Féin. We will not. So by yesterday evening, they had come out quite categorically and said, this is, I think they're now saying on economic policies we can't agree, but basically they've decided they will not go into government with Sinn Féin. Now, I have to be honest, I don't really think that's all that surprising, because I think there's a fear that if they go into government with Sinn Féin will come out as the bigger party at the next election, and Fianna Fáil will almost disappear in the same way that the SDLP did in the north. So I think they've always been terrified of going with Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin are saying, you know, come out to play. This is big boys, big girls game. The people have spoken. But if Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are both saying that they won't go into government with Sinn Féin, then the only option that is left is Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and possibly the Greens, a grand coalition. Now, Fine Gael had originally said that they would support a confidence and supply agreement if that was needed. They then seem to barrel back on that, and they're not so sure that they will. I'm not certain. The people, I don't believe, voted for a Fianna Fáil Fine Gael coalition, but I think we either have that option on the table or a confidence and supply agreement. Interestingly, yesterday, Fianna Fáil were saying that they would favour a confidence and supply agreement rather than, what's the alternative, a rotating Taoiseach. It's very interesting if you look at the two of them actually going into government together. But the other alternative is that we go back to the country for an election. And if we go back to the country again, then the question is, do Sinn Féin actually pull more seats? Because a lot of the seats went to the left anyway, when Sinn Féin didn't actually have a second candidate to take them. So would we end up with more seats in Sinn Féin, but the same number on the left, so the same problem again? Or how would the dynamics change?
In terms of a time frame, though, Ellen, I mean, what are we looking at? Because there seems to be uncertainty about that this could roll on for 2-3 months and we're no further down the line. I mean, are there parameters set legally and constitutionally? Are they under any obligation to get something formed by X date after an election or not?
The last time it took them, was it 90 days or something to negotiate it? And I think the way we've always operated it is that basically the President steps back until somebody says a government cannot be formed. So there is nobody that you can appoint. We now need to go back to the people again. All of the signals from Micheál Martin are that he wants to resolve it as quickly as possible. He doesn't want to go to long negotiations. But it depends entirely on if the deal is a three-party deal, which now sounds quite simple. So if it's Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens, that should be doable in, 60 days maybe? If it's a grand coalition and you need a number of independents or you need to bring in the Social Democrats, then it could go on for
So the likely outcomes, apart from another election, let's park that for the moment. We have the grand coalition with Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. We have Sinn Féin. What could they do? What's their strategy today, do you think? I
think Sinn Féin are very clever. I think what Mary Lou, I think her whole approach has been very clever, because she started out of the traps and said the people have spoken, they want Sinn Féin. Now, I guarantee you Mary Lou knew that she was not going to be forming a government and would not be Taoiseach. But she put it up to the other parties and said...
And she's been willing to engage with everyone.
And she has said, we want more seats. We have a duty to actually try to form a government. So I think what she's doing is she's setting out her stall to the electorate effectively, whether it's another election or whether she ends up in opposition. She's setting out her stall and saying, these people won't play ball with me. They won't talk to me. So if you have decided that we have a mandate to rule, then the next time you have an opportunity, we need a larger mandate. And we stand by all of the policies. And she's cleverly tied back every time she talks. She talks about the fact that it is really a Sinn Féin agenda that people voted for. People were dissatisfied with housing and health. And they were the two issues that Sinn Féin were highlighting.
It's interesting on 2 points when it comes to Fine Gael that Leo has been very quiet over the last couple of days. But anything, when he has spoken, he's basically said it's up to Sinn Féin now. You know, he's almost putting it back in her... Well, she said it's up to her to form a government.
It's really interesting because...
Or is he just setting it... Is he letting her do her thing now because it's impossible to work out?
He's letting her do her thing, but it's an unusual way to play it because nobody goes into an election not wanting to be in government. And Leo is almost sending the signals that he doesn't want to be in government. He's perfectly happy for somebody else to sort out what happens. I wonder long term, if we end up with a rotating Taoiseach, and I'll just fire this gut at you, then it could well be Leo and Micheál Martin. I don't know if he would like to be the second, you know, they're on again, they're off again. But I think if they actually do a coalition, it won't be Leo. I think it will probably, he will step back. Because it would be too difficult for him to come in. He's definitely not going to come in as Taoiseach.
No.
And if there isn't a rotating Taoiseach...
So where would he go then?
I don't know, but I think it may well be that Simon Coveney or somebody takes over the leadership, and then that's a different game for Fine Gael.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we have all of the housing, homelessness, all of those issues being unresolved.
Still to be resolved.
Yeah, which is really frustrating. Let's move on to the UK. Quite a bit of drama there with Boris yesterday. Speaking of reshuffling.
Politics is the gift that keeps giving, isn't it? It's wonderful. Fun and games in the UK yesterday. I think we all knew that Julian Smith wasn't going to be reappointed as Northern Ireland Secretary. Interestingly enough, all the commentary yesterday on the radio was saying a bit petty, really, of Boris Johnson. He was doing a very good job. And it seems, the feeling seems to be that Johnson gave him the job almost expecting him to fail. It was like, this is a poison challenge, you won't do well, you don't have enough time. And he played a stormer. Very curiously, we were just talking about Leo. I can't remember a Taoiseach ever complimenting a foreign dignitary in the way that Leo Varadkar complimented him yesterday. He tweeted that he was possibly one of England's greatest statesmen or something like that. An incredible plus for the guy, and saying he did a marvellous job. And I just thought that was outstandingly different. But he's lost his job. Lewis has come in to replace him. But the one that we sort of knew that job was going to go anyway. The really interesting one was the battle for the Chancellor and the Treasury. I adored that because nobody saw that coming. And basically, if you look at the Irish Taoiseach and the Department of Finance, and then you look at the British Prime Minister and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the games are played in a completely different way. The Taoiseach and the Department of Finance over here don't have this rivalry between them. It's almost an amalgamation. This is the policy. How do we affect it? How do we bring that to the people? You go to the UK and it's like two silos, and there are two powerhouses. And this was Boris Johnson or his wonderful Mr. Cummings, who's behind him, saying, no, they're getting far too powerful over there. And there has always been this battle in the UK. We need to take back all of those special advisors. We need to take back all the Cummings from their side and control everything from number 10. And basically, Sajid Javid said, no, I'm not doing it. No self-respecting minister would. Now, all of his advisors lost their positions anyway. But it's a real power play by number 10 to take over the control of the finances. And the question then has to be, what does Boris want to do with the finances?
What's next?
That he felt he needed that level of control, that he could just say, this is what we're doing.
I think that's the key word, though, Ellen, isn't it? Is it control.
Control, very much so.
Tell us, what do we know about Brandon Lewis? What's his background?
I know very little about him, except that he fits into that box of he's one of Boris's people.
Right.
He has always been on Boris's side. He was on Boris's side during the Theresa May time. So he was always a Brexiteer.
Right.
So the credentials are that he's one of our people.
He ticked all Boris's boxes.
He did. And that seems to be very important for Boris.
Oh, it does. Again, it comes back to control, doesn't it?
It comes back to control. And curiously, if you look at the way businesses are run, there would nearly almost be on a board of directors a number of people who don't agree with what the company is doing. And that's actually a very healthy thing.
Of course.
There is somebody there exactly to argue against you and say, but why do we do this?
But even the body language of Boris yesterday and the bounce and the confidence, it's all part of this power play, isn't it?
And he's very good at it. And he is a control freak, definitely, in the nicest possible way. He wants to control everything. But there's also a great risk with that. Because if anything goes wrong, it can only be Boris. Because if he controls everything, it is his show. So he gets all the credit, but he'll get all the negatives if it goes wrong.
Lots of political storms. We have another real storm on the way here. Storm Dennis is on the way.
Could somebody please name these storms? It's something threatening.
Dennis.
Dennis the Menace.
Storm Darth Vader or something.
Yeah.
But like,
Something
what
a
have
bit
we
more
had?
dramatic.
We've
Storm
had
Doom.
Ciara and Brenda, and they just
They're a
don't
bit
sound
soft,
like they're
are they?
real storms at all. Yeah, they're just non-threatening.
Should we
But
be concerned?
I don't know. This one is rolling in from Iceland. Apparently, it's going to bring an awful lot of rain tomorrow. I think we've got used to storms. Is my general feeling that which used to be. Do you remember about a year ago? Or was it 18 months ago? There was some storm coming in. I remember I moved every single plant pot from the back of the house, and I have an awful lot of plant pots.
Yeah.
And they were all taken inside because I was terrified that they'd be in the neighbours' gardens.
It has to be done because they can cause serious
But
damage.
now I sort of go, it's a storm.
fine.
Yeah.
It's a storm. It'll be grand. So I
Right,
think
well,
watch
batten
this
down the
space. We're
hatches.
not worried. Yeah.
Thank you, Ellen. Appreciate
you,
your
Ellen.
time.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
coming in.